Hey everybody, welcome back to Trial and Error. In this video I'm going to show you how to install a mini split air conditioner or heat pump slash air conditioner. The particular unit I ended up going with is from Mr. Cool, and that's because I'm Mr. Cheap. They had the best pricing, and as it turns out, now that I have it installed, I actually like it better than the Mitsubishi one that I have installed in the house. And actually we have 3 different Mitsubishi units in-house. But this one, as you can see, is going to be going into the garage and will work for heating and cooling. And I didn't know much about HVAC before I endeavored on this process, so that's why I'm calling this video for dummies. Don't take it personally, I'm a dummy myself. But as you will see, this, though it can be or feel intimidating, it really shouldn't be. This is actually a very straightforward process, and I think anybody that can turn a screwdriver could absolutely install one of these systems themselves and save a small fortune. So here we go. Okay, so as far as the mounting location goes, I got a unique situation right now because I'm about partway through sheathing the inside of the shop. So what I've done is I left one bay open with no insulation right now because this is the one we're going to run our refrigerant lines and the electrical down through. I have one piece of 4x8 sheathing here, which is actually where we're going to mount the indoor unit. So I wanted this piece up so that I had something to mount it to, but I wanted access above and below it just in case we got to do something funky with the refrigeration lines. I want to make it nice and easy to run through. So I thought that was a good way of doing it, staggering them like you normally would, but I get access above and below and I have a solid place to mount it. Because this is being used for heat and air conditioning, recommended height on this is about 8 feet. I'm going to be mounting mine right at the very top of this top piece here, which is about 8 feet and 6 inches or so. So just about perfect to where it is. Now I've got 12 and a half foot ceilings in here, and there is no sense in mounting it all the way up there. It's just going to work twice as hard to cool that air in the summer, and it'll help just make it tougher to force the heat down in the winter. So that's where we're going to go for the mounting location, and we're going to start by drilling a pilot hole through somewhere. Where's my finger? Here we go. That's what she said. Well, does that even make sense? No. So we're going to drill a pilot hole down here somewhere, and then I'll come through with a hole saw on the outside to make our first hole. So because I didn't drill it straight through, I actually drilled it at this sort of an angle, so in the event that we do get some rainwater, anything like that, it's going to have to travel uphill to go anywhere. So, but that also means my bit's too shallow to drill through it in one shot. So we just got to find it on this side, which is right about here. Whoa, hello. And drill back down at that angle. And there we go. Alright, so now I'm going to take a measurement basically from this side of the hole to the first stud. Is a proud 5.5. And we're going to go out on the other side now, mark our studs 16 on center so that we can put our bracketry up on the outside. So when connecting the indoor unit to the outdoor unit, you will notice that they have conveniently color-coded the wires, but numerically coded the terminals. So it doesn't even make any sense, but as long as you connect the number 1 to the number 1, the number 2 to the number 2, and the number 3 to the number 3, and the ground obviously to the ground, it doesn't matter what color you choose to be 1, 2, 3, or even ground for that matter, but the terminal does matter on the ground, so that's an easy one. But just make sure you're consistent and that those 3 numbers are connected to the same conductors. Okay, for this portion, I'm going to preface it by saying you don't have to do this part. I'm choosing to do this because I happen to have the flaring toolkit to do it, but I could very easily bury the excess amount of this tubing in the wall, and the only cautionary tale I have for you there is do not coil it. I see it done in videos all over the place where people are coiling the tubes up, usually outside, and there's 2 things wrong with that. One, you're coiling up your refrigerant lines in an un-air conditioned space, or in the winter obviously you're putting them in the cold area when you're trying to keep these things warm. And 2, when you coil it and they stack it vertically, you create oil traps at the bottom, which is not a good thing. So if you do have excess pipe, my recommendation is, in a wall like this, would be to come out of that unit, run it up all the way, and then come down, rather than to leave a coil so that you don't end up with an oil trap. The other option is to kind of zigzag it in the wall cavity to eat up that excess pipe. But as I said, in my case, I have the flaring tools, so I'm going to cut the lines to length and put my own ends on it. I'll be reusing the ends that come with the kit here. We're just gonna slide those guys off and just reuse them here, but they actually supply you with a couple of extra ends. And I'm not sure why, but it's a nice thing to have, I guess, in the package. But we're just going to cut this to the exact length we need and go from there. And there is a slight benefit to doing this, although it is extremely slight. The shorter your line set, the more efficient the system will run, but it's really negligible. We're going to be chopping off maybe 7 or 8 feet of pipe here. The difference, you would never even notice it, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have a shorter line set, assuming you don't have more Freon or 410A in the system based on the length of pipe that it thought you were going to have. But we have a gauge set, we can measure that and adjust if needed, but cutting off a few feet isn't going to hurt anything for sure. Okay, we'll get to cutting. Alright, so now back at the outdoor unit, we're ready to make the connections here permanently. So we're going to need a couple of things, one of which is the nylog. And what we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit on the back side of the flared connection. We're going to put some on the face, being careful not to get it actually in the pipe itself. And you don't need much, just a little bit. And then we're also going to put it on the flared fitting, just the very flared, just the tip, mind you, just the tip of this. And we're also going to get it in the threads as well. Alright. Next thing we're going to do is put a set of vice grips on the valve body itself, because we want to take off any load as we're tightening the line up to it. And I'm going to come over on the other side of the camera here, because I want to visually make sure that my line is coming in at the proper angle. I need to go up a little bit. Just a little bit more. There we go. And you should be able to thread this on by hand all the way. If you can't, that probably means that your pipe's coming in at the wrong angle. And even if you did get it on there, it's not going to make for an ideal mating surface. The manual specifies a specific torque for these. I'm going to ignore that because I don't have an open-ended torque wrench. And pulling from my wealth of experience with copper pipe, we're going to snug it up. We're then going to back it off a little bit. And then we're going to snug it again. Down here, get a better feel for it. Yeah. Good. I'm going to repeat the same process on the low pressure line.
Alright, back at the indoor unit, we're ready to make that connection. And on the indoor unit, don't be surprised when you remove those caps. Either remove them slowly or push the little button on the end of it. That'll allow you to release the nitrogen which is loaded into that coil before it's shipped. So not a dangerous amount of pressure, but you do want to back the knob slowly, let that pressure come back down, and then remove the cap.
Okay, so we're ready to finish up the wiring at the outdoor compressor, the pull switch here. So I did run 10.3, which is not needed, but it's nice to have. I don't know what I'll be doing down the road, so we'll have an extra conductor here with the neutral on it, but we do not need to connect that to anything at the moment. So all I'm going to do, strip a little bit off of it. We're going to cap it off, and we'll coil it up at the bottom of the box. Like that. Okay, so the grounds we're going to pull together
And they're going to tie into the ground block that's in the center. Just take some loose measurements. There we go. Now we're just going to install the trim plate here. And we will install the pull switch. Now there's an on side and an off side. We're going to put it into the on side. Nice and tight. All done. Okay, so now we're just left to tie this into the sub panel out here in the garage. I call this the OCD sub panel. You might be able to tell why. So I put in a pair of breakers right up there. Camo. Pull this guy back. Okay, let me separate out, we'll do the ground line first. And we will try to make it match everything else going on in here. That looks nice. Alright, next we're going to grab the neutral. Kick that out and over. There we go. Okay, we'll start by removing the service caps. Well, these are the valve caps. And we'll pull those guys off. And then this is the service port. Okay, for the service port, you are going to need an adapter. This is a service port adapter for mini split, and I believe this is a 5/16 connection with the Schrader valve purge piece in the center there to connect to your low pressure hose. I'm going to close up the valves here. I'm going to fire up the pump. So after letting the vacuum pump draw the system down for 15 minutes, I closed the valve on the low side and shut off the pump, and then we waited. And we waited to see if it would hold that vacuum for another 15 minutes. So I'm still getting the same reading on the gauge. So the next step is to open up the high pressure port. And we're going to open it up just about a quarter of a turn, and only for about 5 seconds or so. Just enough so that I get enough refrigerant in the line to go from a negative and slightly pressurize the system. And it's starting to move up. Moving up, past 0 now, and we'll stop it at about 2 pounds. Sorry, not 2 pounds. Let's see, where am I? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go up to, we'll go up to 1 pound. And we'll stop it there. So here again, we're going to stop, and I'm going to let it sit for another 5-10 minutes or so, and we'll come back and check and make sure that that 1 pound that is now in the system hasn't gone anywhere. There's a second reason we want to do it this way. One is to double check that obviously your system isn't leaking under a small amount of pressure. But the other reason is we're going to release our service port here before we completely release all of the refrigerant in the system, because this Schrader valve does cause you to lose a little bit in the process of unscrewing this. So if you do it when there's only 1 pound in the system, you're losing a minuscule amount. If you do it when the system's fully pressurized, you're losing considerably more. Okay, another 5 minutes later, and we are holding strong. So going to go ahead and disconnect our service port connection, and you hear that air coming out. You can imagine what that would have been like if we had to fully release the system. Now we're going to find the right size cap, which I think I left in the other room. Fuck me. So once again, I'm going to throw a little nylog on these. And we are ready to fully open the valve. So going back to the high pressure valve first here. We'll open this guy up. You can hear the refrigerant rushing in. And you're going to spin it until it is open fully, but don't push hard. These are all brass connections, so you do have to be kind of delicate with it. And on the low pressure side, we will open this valve. Nice and clean. Oh, once again, happier than a midget at a miniskirt convention. Thing is a ripper. He's blasting out some heat. Nice and quiet too. And this is running full bore right now. And it's spitting pieces of pine needles at me. But yeah, look at that go.
So with that, I tightened up some of the wiring and bundled the refrigerant lines together and got everything ready to drop insulation into that final bay. But it's working. It purrs like a walrus. It kept my shop at 56 degrees on Saturday when I was doing some work in there, and it was 80 plus outside. So what a difference that can make. Just so you all know, again, not cool enough to have Mr. Cool buy me this product or sponsor the video. This is not sponsored by anyone. Only thing I ask that if you're going down this road, if you would please consider clicking on the links I put in the description. That goes a long way to help supporting the channel. And if you're not subscribed, what the hell are you waiting for? This is the best YouTube channel I've ever made. But those of you that are, thank you again for watching. And please consider subscribing if you're not. As always, any questions, concerns, comments, or criticisms, throw them down in the comment section below me. And have a great day, everybody.